The universe is a yes machine. Whatever you say or think into this universe, the universe goes, yes. So if I get weak and I say, universe, I don't know if this is going to work or not. And the universe goes, you're right, Paul, it's not going to work. I don't have any money. You're right, Paul. You don't have any money. I'm unhappy. You're right. And I'm going to show you how unhappy you are. So I've decided to just turn that around. I think of it every day. And the universe says yes to me every day. And when things don't go my way, I know that this or something better is happening right now.
So a question that I like to find out about is, what was hard about making this film that you overcame? And maybe you didn't expect it was going to be hard. Because we've got a room full of actors here, and we have a lot of hard things that happen, and art happens anyway. So what happened with the making of this film, and you persevered?
How much time we got? For starters, we started shooting the movie. It was the pandemic, really in the height of the pandemic. We shot this end of 2021 now. And so, that is just the concept that you have all these people who are bubbling together. We formed a bubble of maybe...
A COVID bubble
of about 40 cast and crew, and we were all living together. We shot in the Berkshires, which is stunning. So there was that. That was amazing. But we were staying at this beautiful former Christian boys camp on a lake, and we were all staying in cabins and stuff and having campfires, and it was amazing. But there was always this looming threat of, is somebody going to test positive for COVID, and we're going to have to shut down? And this is a small movie. We don't have the time or so there was that always present. And there's so much trust that comes in, along with that, and mutual trust. And you're around these people for 2 months between pre-production and production. You're around these people for 2 months, and we never got tired of each other. Never. It was such a family. So really for me, on the creative side, it was just such a gift. We all still get together every chance. What are you doing? The movie's playing at the San Diego Asian Film. Let's go. It doesn't matter. Let's all go and hang out. We just love it. That was.
I do want to speak to us shooting during the pandemic. It's so easy to trick yourself into thinking everything's okay, right? Until one person turns out positive, right? There's one little scare, and everything gets thrown into disarray. And one thing, I forgot exactly how you phrased it, Paul, but the idea of us living in a summer camp, and it felt like summer camp. It's, all the feels are there, but it's also a situation you would never actually choose to do, right? You wouldn't really say, okay, I'm going to join a bunch of people I've never met before and just spend every day and night with them.
Right, and that's true.
I'm sorry, is that right? I'm not.
No, it's true. But for me, I had just come off this exhilarating experience of Sound of Metal. Had just been nominated. You can apply, sure. And my life changed because I've always been a working actor, but had another job. I was a sign language interpreter in the court system in L.A., and that's how I bought my house. I shouldn't buy my house acting. So my point is, I got this team now. I have a team. I have a management team and an agent and all this stuff. And I get this script for The Secret Art of Human Flight. And when I read Sound of Metal, I cried. And when I read this script, I kind of wept a little bit, because it really, guys, if this gets done the right way, it's very moving. And my new team's like, what do you want to do this? Because I was on my way to do my brand new Jennifer Lopez movie for Netflix. And yeah, that's a nice thing, but there's something about shooting a film in 21 days that really gets my blood going. It's you only get 3 takes, and you only got 21 days. And I just did another movie, Sing Sing, 21 days. So that's Marvel. Don't call me, okay? I'm not interested. If Marvel's here tonight, I'm only kidding. So I'm just making a joke. But yeah, so the challenge was, why do you want to do this? Well, I had 3 weeks right before doing my Jennifer Lopez thing, so why not? And so now here we are. So if you're a young filmmaker, do like this guy did. He just sent me a letter, very nice, proper letter, and asked me if I'd like to do this movie. I had the time to do it. Didn't pay anything, but we did it. So you can get stuff done if you've got some heart and balls.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. 3 weeks.
So
Anymore, he's out.
who wrote the letter? Who sent the letter?
HP.
I did. I
HBO.
wrote
How'd you
it.
get the script? Jesse
Orenshine. Grant came to me through a friend of ours, a mutual friend, Richard Wong. Richard Wong's one of my oldest collaborators. We did a movie called Coleman the Musical about 19 years ago now. And he directed Grant in a film called Come As You Are. And after that, Grant and I became friendly on Instagram. You know, we only communicated through emojis for a while. But I felt like it was getting more intense with the emojis. I'm like, oh, we're actually communicating. And that's when I...
Getting heavy with the emojis.
Yeah, strings of eggplants. No, Grant reached out, said, I have a script for you to read. And, you know, like you, I was, you know, you said, if this is done right, this could really move people. And one of the things that I knew was knowing that Paul thought that, well, so I better not mess this up. Because one of the producers on the film, Ben Wiesner, also said, in the wrong hands, the exact same words of this script could feel like the most like trite, like feel-good Hallmark movie. You know, not to call out Hallmark, but like I'm just quoting him. So that was my heart.
Anyone from Hallmark is here.
If anyone's
just kidding.
He's just kidding.
And they're available.
No, but it became a thing where it's like okay, no pressure. I have to make something different, you know. So my hardship was more of a really creative, but really fun challenge.
Oh, I love it. I love hearing these stories because, you know, there's so many movies that don't get made, and there's so many opportunities that we want to be a part of, and there's just something that happens and it just never gets to the screening, or we're cut, right? As actors, we're cut from the film. So it's just really exciting to see something all come together like this. And I want to talk a little bit about risk taking, because one thing, like just as an actor, I'm wondering for you, Grant, I know you're also a producer on this, but you're like on a roof. You are, there's the spiders, and then there's the bird in your hair. So, I mean, people could have, you know, some feelings about those kinds of things. How did you handle that, or was it all
I'm so
smooth?
happy you mentioned the 3 things that were indeed the hardest for me, because the coffin, that was fine. That was just, you know, we were kind of schmacting there, and, you know, you put the right music and cut it together, and that's fine. But the bird was such a pain in the ass. It shat on my head 3-4 times, because you also had to like get the bird to land on the head. So there were days of practice, and I got these claw marks in my head. And I'm bleeding, and they were actually like, they had to cover up scratches on my head. So I was like done with the bird, man. I was done with the bird. And the roof day for me was miserable. And you were great. You were just, I didn't realize that I had a fear of heights until roof day. Swear to God. And what's funny is, like, we scouted the roof. We were just like, yeah, it'll be no problem. And then you get up there and it's pitched like this. I was like, I don't think I got this today.
If I could gloat about our relationship, though, it was the first time I was directing him through a monitor. You know, I think I never realized what synergy we'd built together until we were forced to be apart from each other.
That was a tough day to be away from you, actually.
And I couldn't feel what you were feeling. I didn't know how scared he was. I'm like, wow, he's really good. He looks scared.
Between action and cut, I'm just chilling. They call cut. I'm like,
no, actually, I hope we can put this in the special features. This is the final take. When I called it the final take, was him he has to do this scene where he's waking up. It's literally just him waking up, right? But it has to be a pretty shot of him waking up, and he's on the roof, and you can see the sunrise. He looks right in the camera because he can't see me, but he knows I'm looking at the monitor. He looks in the camera. He's just like, I'm done. And I was like, we're done.
Yeah, so that was a really hard day for me. And then the tarantula.
Yeah.
The last one you mentioned was the tarantula. And I am terrified of spiders, but I think at this point we had already done the bird, we had done the roof, and a few other things had happened. And I was just traumatized by that and maybe a little desensitized. So when we got to the tarantula, I was told that the tarantula, they were like, this is Bernie. She's been defanged. And I'm just letting her crawl all over me. She tickles, and then we do the whole action, and I'm freaking out, and I faint and all that. And then I go to, and I kind of like take it, and I'm just kind of like petting her and stuff. And I go to give her back, and the spider wrangler, because they have those, the spider wrangler comes over and is like, oh, let me take him. And I was like, her? Like, what? Bernie, right? Isn't it Bernie? No. Oh, this is not named Bernie. And I was like, and they're like, you got to be careful the way you handle her. She's got fangs. And I was like, they told me she didn't have fangs. So I heard that this was, Bernie. She defanged. None of these things were true. And Tina she lied to me blatantly, and it worked because I just was totally fine. But this was a rough one, but it was a fun one.
Tina, by the way, is our touchy-feely, honest producer.
Very honest.
Not in that moment. It worked, though.
It was perfect. It was exactly what was needed on the day.
Paul, talking about how you interpret stories, you do it through sign language, you do it through acting, and you do it through music. I mean, because how do you feel when in a role like because you did some of the music for the show as well, for the film. So talk a little bit about your process for how you bring yourself to a role like this. Like we were saying earlier, like in other hands, it may have turned out in a whole different way. The script may have too. But for you to be that grounded, to be that relatable, and that we want to hear what you have to say to see if there's something that we can learn. Can you talk a little bit about your process of getting into a character like this?
Well, actually, for me, it wasn't that difficult because I moved, let's make a long story short, when I moved to Los Angeles in '89, I started to get into the fabric of Los Angeles actors, meeting them and getting a job and all this thing. You meet for the first time at a LA party, I met a life coach. I said, what the hell is this? It's another actor who decided to become a life coach and coach other actors on how to be, okay with yourself in LA. Very difficult. Because, you got to have a job or two to support your acting habit. You know what I'm talking about. So I and my wife, we started what we call church hopping. We'd be looking at this spiritual center and this thing and all these gurus that live in LA. So this mealworm guy is a real guy that I worked with at the Agape Spiritual Center in Los Angeles. And these were guys that dressed just like mealworm, and the black guys too. They've got this church had a choir where it was predominantly black, a couple of white guys wearing dashikis singing with the choir. I thought, what the hell's going on here? It was actually full of love. But I studied spirituality there, and the guy that I modeled the mealworm after, his name was Nirvana. He named himself Nirvana Gale, and he was my practitioner. I learned everything about spiritual principle from this guy that I could, him and another guy named Michael Beckwith. But they dressed like that. And the other thing about them is when I got into being part of the fabric of that church, and you see how the sausage is made at a church when you work at one, right? And I was like, nah, I want somebody a little stronger than that. But Nirvana Gale and Michael Beckwith were drug dealers back in the day. And then they became these spiritual gurus so just like Mealworm, he's still looking for the answer, and he believes and he doesn't believe. It's just all these characters, even this Jesus guy that people talk about. He was flawed too, he had problems, so that's why I found the guy so fascinating. Then when I found out you want to dress me like Nirvana, the guy that I studied with, I thought, all right, fine. So it wasn't a stretch for me. The jewelry, the talk, and how many of us, I profess my spiritual practice that I do every day, my wife and I, but yet I have weak moments too. I have things that I don't know if this is going to work or not. Like how you know this is going to work? I don't know, man. But I've got faith. I've got hope. That's all I've got, And I know the one rule that I learned from all my years of study is that the universe is put it in a childlike fashion. The universe is a yes machine. Whatever you say or think into this universe, the universe goes yes. So if I get weak and I say, universe, I don't know if this is going to work or not, and the universe goes, you're right, Paul, it's not going to work. I don't have any money. You're right, Paul. You don't have any money. I'm unhappy. You're right. And I'm going to show you how unhappy you are. So I've decided to just turn that around. I think of it every day. And the universe says yes to me every day. And when things don't go my way, I know that this or something better is happening right now. Even though it's desolate, whatever it is, I'm an actor, but it's happening right now. So anyway, that's what I'll say about that.
Paul. HP, can you talk a little bit about how you set up your actors for success in the film in terms of like how they became, this relationship here, between Ben and Mealworm. Can you talk about what you did to help facilitate that?
Well, I want to start by saying this is the first movie I directed that I didn't write. And I think a lot of people were like, I wonder what that's going to be like. Are you okay with that? I'm like, you have no idea how liberating this is. Because when I did my previous movies, I basically walk on set every day and think, oh my God, have I just Stockholmed a bunch of people into doing this? Like, do I know it's a good script, right? But to know that Grant was assembling a bunch of people to make this happen the way he sees fit, I feel like, oh, I'm another good choice. And that just kind of put a spring in my step, right? And it was interesting to think about, tack onto what Paul was saying about that scene. How are you so sure this is going to work? That wasn't in the script. That was sort of a late addition, because one of the things we talked about was, okay, new day, let's talk about our characters. Who are you and who are you to him? Let's all talk about who we are to each other. And it was always like somewhere in between life coach and coachee. We never said father, son. It never really went there. But the one thing I said, though, that I really wanted to work into the script is that moment where he says, how are you so sure this is going to work? And he says, I'm not. Because I was talking to everybody about how there comes that one day in your life when you realize that one of your parents is full of shit, and they don't have the answers. And that's like the moment you grow up. And I said, that would hit me so hard, you guys. And that was Paul's last day. It was a real emotional time for all of us, because we're like, oh my God, Paul's just part of the family and this is his last day. Rapping Paul meant a big thing. It was a big deal. And I remember a lot of things were flashing back to me on that day, because one of the first things I said to you was, thank you for saying that line. Let's talk about this. Does that feel comfortable? And Paul was, I think you were being polite. You're like, yeah, of course. Yeah, whatever you want. I'm like, yeah, well, let's talk about this, because I didn't write this. Like, you can shit on the script if you want. Like, let's talk about whether or not you would actually say this if you are Mealworm. And we had a chance to work on almost every line. And I think one of the reasons we were doing that was because this was a very specific set. This is smack dab in the middle of lockdown. All of us had lost something, and people were walking in very broken. So I wasn't about to have a bunch of broken people, including myself, just kind of, get them together, no intro, and just say action. We kind of had to make this all our own.
Wow, very, very powerful. And of course, you're dealing with the subject of grief, so you already have that on the table. And of course, grief, like so many emotions, is so unexpected. There's so many surprises that happen within that emotion. It's just such a powerful film, and it really makes you think that, there's so many different ways that people cope, because you saw also your neighbor, the friend, the character that Wendy, right? Yeah. That in a different way, but still sympathetic to you. I'm wondering for you, Grant, wearing the hats of being an actor and also being a producer, how is that for you when you are on set? How do you really separate yourself completely and not be looking at the overall picture as the producer when you're in a scene? What do you do? What's your process around that? Because being a producer and an actor sounds really cool, doesn't it? But there's got to be so many different things that are weighing on you for both jobs.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start by saying that this whole experience, I think a lot of you will probably relate to this when I say that sometimes you get a job and it's not a job. It's a life experience. It changes your life, at its best. It can be just a job and you're grateful when it's just a job. And then sometimes it is something that will just change the very fabric of your being. And I've been lucky enough to do this 3 times now as an actor and producer. And each time I've learned, more about myself as a man, learn more about myself as an actor, as a business person, as a filmmaker. But also a huge part of it is curating the people that you're going off and having these life experiences with, because it's the same for them. It's a big responsibility, and one that you shouldn't take lightly, and none of us do, when we set out to do so. We've been talking about this and going on 4 years of really knowing each other. We know each other deeply. And so for me on the day, so much of it is being able to remove that hat and just focus on the character. And sometimes that, there are some days where you just wake up and you're like, man, I just got to act today. What a pleasure. And then there are other days where, your partners are pulling you aside and going, we have a serious problem. And, you just sort of have to go, you do sort of have to bifurcate. You do sort of have to compartmentalize and just go, okay, today we gotta climb some serious mountains, and whether you just got to do it, and you lean on the people around you. As an actor, I get to lean on Paul, I get to lean on HP, and as a producer, I got to lean on Tina Carboni, and I got to lean on Ben Wiesner, and we had so many amazing executive producers on this, and so many, the cinematographer would, you just feel like, you guys know when you're on a set and you just feel that the cam op is fucking with you. It's just like, you do a scene and they like take their eye away from the monitor and they're just like, or something like that. And it's like, oh, I love that. And we had Marcus Menzer, who is just a boss in that way. And just, this one was just the ride of a lifetime. I really hope I hope people get to see it, because then it'll all be worth it.
For you, HP, how do you trust yourself with people that you're working with so closely that you got the shot and you can move on? Because you care deeply, so do they. What is it like for you being able to say, we got it, let's move on?
So while I said this is the first movie I directed I didn't write, this is also the first movie I directed and didn't produce, because I wanted to see what it would feel like to just direct, Sorry, Grant, I know it's like extra pressure on you, but I've got you, right? Like, I will direct you. But whenever there were producer meetings, I was always invited. I'm like, no, I'm going to stick with the actors, or I'll stick with Marcus. Let's stay by the camera. I'll stick with Grant. And for me, I think what's really interesting is now I can literally say action and cut until it feels like a movie. Because that's what it means, right? And I got to learn, there were different actors, different acting styles. I think Paul's very holistic. He cares about this. When he's not on camera, we're doing reverses, he wants to be behind the camera. He sees what's going on. Other actors, like Maggie, is very much like, no, I'm just going to do my thing because it has to be pure, She was very focused on her character, and she just didn't want to be distracted from that. You know what? I get that, right? For that kind of role, it's true. Lucy DeVito, kind of a hybrid, right? Lucy has a really sharp understanding of storyboarding and animation. If you guys have a chance, on Hulu, she has her own show called Little Demon, which that's her baby. And I remember at one point, I had a gag where, she says, the secret art of human flight, what is this? And who is this guy, and why is he smiling? And she was kind of doing it kind of vaudevillian in a way that I was like, okay, let's work on the rhythms. And she was like, what's this going to look like? And I showed her, I said, well, it's kind of Adult Swim, It's kind of like you see you, and when we hear you say, and who is this guy, and why is he smiling? And it would just like shift over, very like, Aqua Teen Hunger Force, very Rick and Morty. And she was like, I got you. And like, as long as she knew what the shot was going to look like, then she was happy. So you have these different styles, and balancing them against each other to make sure that it looks like they're all in the same world. I feel like that's what direction is at this point. Like, I don't want to have to be thinking about the budget. I don't want to have to be thinking about that. That's what we have the producers for. So how do we have the shot? Literally, in this case, I don't know. Maybe this is a beautiful thing that'll never happen again. But when everyone's happy.
Wow. Sounds very collaborative.
Oh, it was.
For you, Paul, you said at the top of our conversation that when you read this script and you found out about the opportunity to play this role, you said yes. How do you decide not to take something? Because does it just speak to you in ways that you say, this is not for me right now? Because you were so clear about this sounds like fun, let me go on this, even though your team was saying something different.
Yeah, that's basically it. If it speaks to me, I'll know it. I read tons of scripts, tons every week, and so and it's true. If you don't have me on page 10, it's gonna. It's not. In the old days, he used to say, "I'm gonna throw this piece of shit across the room." Now it's all on computers, so I'd throw my iPad across the room. No, but if it speaks to me in the first 10 pages, you got to follow the rules a little bit. And I do go to the end of the script and see if it's over 100 pages, because you're just not going to get it made in Hollywood. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen if you're a first-time writer. And I get a lot of those kind of scripts. So it's basically a feel thing. Yes, if it speaks to me, and if I have an emotional reaction at the end, that's kind of important. That doesn't happen very often, though.
I'm glad it happened here.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to wrap it up now. I want to say a very special thank you to the three of you, Grant, HP, and
Thank you.
yeah, and Paul. I really feel like we can feel how involved and excited you were about and determined you were to make this film. So let's do everything we can to get it out to our friends and family and get the good word out there so that other
Thank
people
you all
can
for
enjoy it.
coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you for just being here. This means everything.